They say the light of day clears your mind, but the morning after Ian's party, the sunlight only served to make me feel like a complete fool. I woke up in my apartment, stared at the ceiling, and thought, I suffered an auditory hallucination induced by stress and sheer fatigue. It is the only logical explanation. After all, normal people hear the wind passing through the window. Crazy people hear voices inside their heads. As a software developer, I flatly refuse to accept a diagnosis of madness. It had to be a ringing in my ear, a spasm in my eardrum, anything biological. To try and calm my mind and to escape the heavy, suffocating atmosphere of the apartment, I decided to go out. I called a few fellow developers and arranged to have lunch at a busy executive restaurant downtown. I needed real noise and banal, everyday conversations. I sat down with them. We talked about market updates, new artificial intelligence tools, investment fluctuations, tangible things. They were just like me, skeptical, analytical, men who live by the strict rule of never believing in anything that cannot be measured by data. I tried to participate. I forced a smile, but inside, I felt like a complete stranger. For the first time in my life, that cold corporate logic felt completely hollow. All that talk about numbers and technology felt like a superficial theater performance. Elyon's warning from the night before kept hammering away inside my head. Do not anchor yourself to any projection of this material reality. I returned to my apartment in the early afternoon, even more restless than when I had left. The silence of the place felt like it was screaming. I remembered a conversation I had with him months ago in the lounge of our club, long before any of this began. At the time, I thought it was just the delusion of an eccentric man. But he had explained his vision regarding simulation theory and quantum physics to me in great detail. Elyon said that human consciousness emits a specific frequency, and that if we concentrated all of our willpower and mental energy into a single point, we would be capable of tearing through our material reality. He said that the invisible universe responds to absolute focus, opening a door in this world for other dimensions to manifest. Back then, I laughed. But now, after seeing that message on my phone and hearing that exact same sigh at home and in the middle of a crowded party, my logic was in total breakdown. If this was a glitch in my reality, I needed to test it. I hadn't changed my beliefs. I hadn't suddenly become religious or mystical. I simply decided to act like a scientist facing an anomaly. I resolved to test Elyon's hypothesis. If he was right, something would happen. If he was wrong, I would prove to myself that I was losing my mind and I'd go find a doctor. I decided to perform the experiment. I walked into my library, closed the curtains, and turned off all the lights, leaving the room in near total darkness. I sat down in an armchair. Straight ahead of me, on the opposite wall, hung the large screen of my workstation monitor, which was turned off. I took a deep breath. I followed the instructions Elyon had mentioned. I closed my eyes, isolated all banal thoughts about Ian, work, about everything, and focused all of my mental energy, all of my raw intent on the memory of that sigh. I altered my frequency.
When I opened my eyes, I locked my gaze directly onto the screen in front of me. At first, nothing happened. Just the empty void of darkness. But I stayed focused, without blinking, channeling every single drop of my mental processing power into that black dot. 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes passed. Suddenly, the absolute black of the monitor began to shift. Right in the exact center of the screen, a microscopic luminous speck appeared, like a single lit pixel on a dead screen. Except it wasn't an artificial light. It was a phosphorescent, milky mist that began to expand softly, undulating as if it were alive. My heart raced, but I didn't break eye contact. The mist began to organize itself, gaining contours, immaterial colors, and an impossible sharpness. My reality was being rewritten right before my eyes. And then the reflection formed completely. Through the dark glass, I saw a woman's face. It wasn't a projection. It wasn't a hologram. It was a face of a beauty so divine, so ethereal and pure, that no artificial intelligence or living artist on this earth would ever be capable of simulating it. She had delicate features, enveloped in a soft luminosity, and eyes of a blue so deep and serene that they seemed to carry the peace of another dimension. She looked directly at me. There was a celestial sweetness in her expression, a silent recognition, as if she had been waiting for that exact moment for an eternity. I didn't know who she was, where she came from, or what name to give to a being made of so much light. In my mind, I baptized her Angelis. The apparition lasted for only a few seconds. The image began to fade slowly, turning into vapor, until the monitor screen became nothing more than a dark reflection once again. But the damage to my world was already done. In that exact second, staring into the blank void, I realized that I was hopelessly, desperately in love with that invisible consciousness. And the most terrifying part? In the blink of an eye, Yane, my friends, my job, and the entire real world were completely deleted from my heart. They meant absolutely nothing anymore. I had crossed the barrier, and there was no longer any way back. To find out what happened the next day, you need to watch episode 4. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter of this story. See you in the next monologue.